Good morning, Viet. Oh, we're not. Yeah, I wanted to do some Robin Williams stuff because I was watching that movie the other day. Yes. Hello to our fans. It's a beautiful January 26th on this lovely Sunday morning. I have a partly cloudy skies to my left, and I was watching an old Robin Williams movie, Good Morning Vietnam, and I just love that intro and like to shout things out. But
I mean, we can say good morning to Vietnam. It's just that I don't think it's morning there right now. Of course, whenever they watch this, it could be. And I don't know if we have any viewers in Vietnam, though. If we do, that's awesome.
indeed, I don't even know what time it is in Vietnam. It's probably like 9 hours ahead of us, maybe.
Well, let me look up here. Let's see
Let's
here.
let's check that out.
What time is it in Vietnam right now?
I've just been
It is
watching.
10:29 p.m.
Oh God,
Sunday,
it's
January 26th. So they are 12 hours ahead.
holy shittles. All right. I
So how
have
about that?
just for some reason, I don't know. Just I've been watching the past couple weeks. Just Robin Williams movies. I don't know. I just was on the streaming services a couple weeks ago and I found Good Morning Vietnam and I watched that and I watched what's that one where he's man, I'm having brain farts today. I apologize. It's the one where he is. Hold, please. I'm going to find this because for some reason I have drawn a blank. Watch Good Will Hunting. I always liked that movie. Let's see. It's where Robin Williams kind of plays like a serial killer type of weirdo guy. I want to say 8 millimeter, but I'm not sure if that's the right one.
8 millimeter?
That might be a different actor. Hold, please. That's why I
No,
want to.
Robin Williams was in it. That was Nick Cage.
Oh, is that Nick Cage? Okay. Watched Dead Poet Society the other day too. And Cadillac Man made me laugh. I don't care how weird of a movie that is. Cadillac Man made me laugh. That was always a fun one.
Oh,
I've seen Mrs.
man.
Doubtfire more so many times. Where is?
Just read a quote that annoyed me.
No, we don't want you to be annoyed. 1 hour photo. That's it. I knew it had to do with photos. So that's why I was kind of like, what the hell is it called?
Yeah, I've still never watched that one. I think it's because,
It's a very interesting take
yeah,
character for him to play.
yeah, I
Um,
think it was because like my younger sister said she watched it once and she didn't like that she played like a dark character and everything. And I
yeah,
was like, that came out, I want to say around the same time that he was in Insomnia with Al Pacino, which and Hilary Swank, which was
yes,
Christopher Nolan's first movie after he did Memento.
yes. 2002, both those movies came out. Insomnia and 1 hour photo.
Yeah, and I had seen Insomnia because I was more interested in the concept and everything. And he plays, a killer in that.
Yes.
Um, he's very like chillingly like subtle and creepy and everything. So, um, but yeah, I've still never watched 1 Hour Photo. Again, like I said, my younger sister, I think she was like turned off by it because I guess she just only wanted to see Rob Williams play like, crazy zany characters or whatever. And I was like,
Yeah, 1 hour photo is more of the creepy, disturbing type of character.
yeah.
Like yeah, like the psycho type of crazy type of character.
Yeah, he's basically a
Yes,
stalker in it, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that was, yeah, that was an interesting movie. That was actually the first time I think I won't. Yeah, that was the first time I watched that. Was a couple weeks ago. I meant to watch it so many times, and then I heard like people were just kind of taken back by him playing the character like that because that was they were able to be okay with him playing like a killer Insomnia because that was like a different bad guy take where 1 hour photo was some more creepy type of shit. So it was kind of weird to see Robin Williams play a character in that manner.
I know
Um,
it's like this is the thing that's existed in Hollywood for forever. It's like people just don't want to. Some people get so used to seeing an actor play a certain type of role that if they try to go against type, they reject it. It's why, John Wayne, once he got big and everything, played John Wayne. There was very little variation in his characters. Like the Searchers is kind of like the closest where his character is not really all that heroic when you come right down to it because it's like he's looking to find his niece and everything, but it gets to the point where he's looking to find her basically just to kill her because she's been corrupted, by the Comanches who have abducted her and everything.
yeah, yeah,
And that does come across, but a lot of people I think still just kind of look at him as like being a little too much the hero when it's like there's a lot of his actions in that movie that aren't heroic and stuff, but he was still playing like John Wayne and so many of like the mannerisms and like his lines and shit like that. But so John Wayne never ever tried to play against type. A lot of actors from the classic era wouldn't. Those who did, it's like when they tried to, the results weren't always good. Like when Jimmy Stewart was in Vertigo, he plays a character who falls into the throes of obsession and stuff like that. And the movie was a failure when it first released, and Hitchcock wouldn't work with Stewart again after that, even though they had done three pretty successful movies prior, because he thought that one of the reasons that the movie bombed was because people thought Jimmy Stewart looked too old. And he was starting to look a little old at that point. He was like in his early 50s, I think. And, of course, that's the thing. He was paired up with Kim Novak, who I think was in like her mid 20s at the time.
yeah.
So there is a bit of an odd juxtaposition between them. It wasn't Jimmy Stewart didn't like, kind of look as youthful as Cary Grant still did around that time. So um,
Valid.
I remember my mother's best friend, like my aunt, as I always call her, even though she's not really my aunt, when Colin Firth was in a movie a number of years ago, which I believe he got an Oscar nomination for, but he played a gay character. you know, I said something. We were talking about that movie briefly for some reason, and I said, "Yeah, I don't think it's in a lot of box office because it's more of like an indie movie and this, that, and the other thing." And she said like, "Well, I don't think people really want to see him playing that type of character." And I was like, "What? They got a problem with him playing a gay character?" And it's like,
Yeah,
um, yeah. So like, I think maybe some people had taken to him as like, oh, he's this, sweeping romantic lead, even though he wasn't always. Colin Firth's done a lot of stuff where he didn't play those types of characters. So, but yeah, sometimes you just don't want to see the character play that type of character. I went and saw Flight Risk yesterday, and Mark
hmm,
Wahlberg's a villain.
yes.
And I really can't think of that many movies where Mark Wahlberg has really played a villain, at least not for a long time, since he
Uh,
really became like an A-list star and everything. But I remember there was a movie, Fear, I think it was, with Reese Witherspoon, but that was like almost 30 years ago now.
yes. Yeah, that was one.
Yeah.
I'd have to look, but I don't think he's played more than
Yeah.
it's very few and far between.
Right. He played an abrasive character in The Departed, but he wasn't a villain.
Yeah, no, no, definitely not.
So this one, he's an out and out villain. He's a thoroughly bad guy. One of the failings of that movie, in my view, was the plot is so self-contained. It's like these two people are trapped on this small airplane with a guy who's really there to kill them. Um, was that they kept making slight allusions to like where he came from and who he was and what he had been and this and that, but then they never really fully expanded upon it. And it's like, again, the plot being what it was, I can see why they didn't, but it's like then you don't even bring that stuff into it, you know?
So they're kind of like giving you hints of Wahlberg's character's background and stuff like that, but then kind of just stopped.
Yeah,
Okay,
they didn't follow through on it, So
gotcha, gotcha.
because he spends a couple portions of the movie unconscious too, so you know, um,
Interesting. Okay.
it wasn't bad by any means. I mean, um, it's funny in a lot of ways. I feel somewhat unclean watching that movie because of who directed it.
Oh, I don't know who directed it.
Mel Gibson.
Oh, oh, okay.
Well, look, we know Mel's had his issues, shall we say, over the last 20 years or so, which has made him a pariah in certain circles of Hollywood, but he's been able to keep working and
Yes.
he's still been recognized for his work. I mean, he got a Best Director nomination, if I'm not mistaken, for Hacksaw Ridge, or at the very least, the movie was nominated for Best Picture and everything. So
Yeah.
it's not like Mel's been totally unable to work, but cross into politics. He was appointed a special ambassador to Hollywood by Trump, along with I think it was Sylvester Stallone and one of other Trump's Hollywood sycophants, I think John Voight. And I remember Mel saying something like, "Oh, I didn't know about this." It's like it's completely meaningless. You know, it's
Interesting.
just that these are three guys who have sucked up to Trump hard. But Friday night it was, I was on the one website I go to, and I guess he was on one of the Fox shows. Doesn't even matter which, they're all the same. And he made a comment about Trump being back in office. I think the exact quote was, "It's as if daddy's come home and he's taken off the belt." Okay. First of all, this whole thing about all these right wingers, Trump supporters, talking about how daddy's home.
No president should be referred to as daddy's home,
Right, right. The
period.
whole the whole thing is disturbing on a level that's troubling. I mean, first of all, the only person you should ever refer to as daddy is your own father. And if you're an adult, if you're still calling him daddy, you've got some issues. I'm sorry.
We
If
got
I
some
see a
other
grown
underlying
adult call
issues
their
going
father
on.
daddy and they're not doing it in an obviously joking
Oh,
manner, it makes me
oh.
wonder. Sorry, it does.
I mean, it could be your stepdaddy. It could be, I'm just saying, dependent.
Well,
I
this
won't
also
go.
dates back to a George Carlin joke where he was complaining about
Oh.
people who go like, grown men who refer to their father as my daddy. Well, my daddy used to say, But
Well,
anyway,
that's a southern thing too. With
I
someone
I
that's,
know, and
it's
that's one
funny,
of my
but it's a
issues.
southern thing.
I'm sorry. Um, but it's like daddy's home and he's taken off the belt. So what Mel is saying is he supports child abuse?
He's taking off the belt and he's gonna whip his American children today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember if my father ever hit me or my sisters with his belt ever. I really can't remember. I don't think so.
I was. It's all good.
Um, you know, and I'm not going to try to pretend that I know how to parent because I'm not a parent. I know I have enough issue trying to get my nieces and nephews to take me seriously at times, other than just be the fun uncle kind of thing.
Yes,
I
yes,
was
it's
I was over their
challenging.
house yesterday trying to help my nephew pass a few levels in Lego Star Wars. And as I was trying to remember what to do in some of them, and I had to go into the online guide and shit. So I'm not going to pretend that I know how to parent or to tell people how to parent and stuff. But dude, I do know that beating your children is not the way to go.
Yeah, yeah, it's really. I mean, sometimes I need a good whooping. It all depends on the situation. You know, not gonna lie, but
Yeah, I mean,
just
but
you need to
it
get you need
just
to get you need to get the point across.
there's just this like weird, and again, this is how
He's ever he's their stepdaddy.
well, yeah, this is how you again, it's a cult when these people are saying shit like this and and unironically and thinking that again that this is like the way things that need to be done or whatever. It's just
Mind-boggling. Listen, I've watched him on um podcasts before, several, and he definitely has some interesting takes on what's going on now with certain topics, and talks about some interesting history lessons he likes to divulge and talk about. This interesting. Well, I know it's not that I'm dismissing anything, because everyone's got their, way of thinking and their opinions, but some of it, I would say only maybe 10% of it really made sense to me, and the rest of it just kind of felt like he was talking about a movie he wanted to make. Not that I haven't heard like these topics that he was talking about before, but just the way he goes about it. It's like very storytelling-ish and stuff like that. It's like you try to pitch a movie to somebody. Um, yeah, so he's definitely turned into a very interesting character. 100%.
Yeah, it's and shit like this is about him has been out there ever since he did Passion of the Christ
Yes.
and had the DUI, with the Jews cause all the wars or whatever that comment was, the anti-Semitism, which of course
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember what came first now, the DUI or Passion of the Christ,
Oh,
because it was like Passion of the Christ was accused of being anti-Semitic. And the funny thing was, I remember the one time I watched Passion of the Christ, I was like,
I seen it
well, I
too.
don't know if it comes off as anti-Semitic because this is what I was always exposed to being raised Catholic, every year at Easter when we read the Passion in Mass, it was like this is the way it was always depicted. So I'm like, if you want to say that the Catholic scripture and everything is anti-Semitic, sure, yeah, I guess you can make that argument.
Mhm.
We're not
Yeah.
saying anybody's right or wrong, but I also always thought my understanding, and again, it could be wrong because this isn't a subject that I really have that much interest in anymore, was that, yeah, one of the reasons Jesus was crucified was because he had offended the Jewish elders who were then basically pushing for him to be out of the way, which was really more a political thing, you know, than it was so much anything else. And that, like, they were just able to get the Romans to essentially be their sword in that sense.
True.
Um, I don't know, but it was like, and I think there was also when that stuff was coming out, um, there was a lot of stuff that was rehashed about Mel Gibson's father. His father, I think, was supposedly a Holocaust denier,
Oh,
and was like, I don't want to even say fundamentalist Catholic because to me that's like a contradiction in terms. You know, it's a lot different than anything, but it just seemed like his father was a bit of a particular person. Let's just put it that way.
yeah, I've
Um,
heard some stuff about his dad too. Heard some stories.
unfortunately, I think that if you're exposed to somebody like that, that's like your formative thing. That yeah, a lot of that stuff's going to rub off on you, and
Of
nature versus
course.
nurture, that kind of shit. And you can still form your own opinions. I know, for example, right now, Dennis Quaid's become a Trump supporter and everything. His son Jack, as far as I know, has kind of distanced himself from that same level of Trump fealty. So it's like it's not written that you have to be exactly the same as your father or anything like that.
No, no.
But yeah, I don't know what it is with Mel. He's just come off and ends up he's just ended up coming off as being kind of a strange guy when you just come right down to it.
Yeah,
So
he has turned into a strange dude.
yeah, the problem is, of course, it's like some of that stuff applies like retroactively then, where it's like, oh man, I don't enjoy Lethal Weapon as much now. I don't enjoy Maverick as much now.
Hmm.
It's like I guess it just depends upon their level. Like there was a period then when Schwarzenegger had gone into office and everything, I was pretty down on him. But since he's been out of office, I've kind of gravitated back towards him. Still have a lot of appreciation for his, 80s and 90s movies and everything. And
Yeah.
I like him more now than I did then because he's not a Trumper and there's issues that I agree with wholeheartedly that he's, in my view, on the right side of, like environmental issues specifically. So, it's like I guess it all just depends on how the person is, you know. It's like, and when we go back to classic Hollywood, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of actors I like who were liberals at the time, people like Humphrey Bogart and Henry Fonda and such. But then there was Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne and some others who were also conservative. That doesn't prevent me from watching and enjoying their movies, even though some
Yeah.
of them, Wayne specifically, said some things that were not great, you know.
Indeed, indeed.
Uh, so, you know,
He's one
Wayne
of my
had
dad's
the,
favorite actors. He loved Western movies.
you know, Stewart was not like in your face and he was not like quotable. Wayne went and said some things later in his life like that were out there, like comments about like how like the Indians were, you know, greedily trying to keep all the land to themselves and wouldn't share it with the settlers. That's a way overly simplified view of what was going on
Very
and a
true.
very skewed way of looking at it. He also said some things about minorities that were questionable, you know,
Yes.
but as far as I know, you won't see any quotes from Jimmy Stewart or even guys like the other like classic Hollywood actors who I know were on the more conservative side, like say like Gary Cooper or Clark Gable. I never seen any quotes from them saying shit like that. So you know, it's
Yeah.
like if they had any views as such, we don't know about them. You know, so it's
They kept it to themselves or within their inner circle.
yeah. And I'm not. And it's like you know, there's people say you can't separate the art from the artist, and it's like
Mm.
I get that. And I wrestle with that feeling anytime I listen to a Michael Jackson song or if I
Mm.
watch a Woody Allen movie, which I got to be honest, I haven't watched any Woody Allen movies since like the latest round of stuff about him, you know, came out a couple years ago when that HBO documentary was on and shit. But I don't turn off like Michael Jackson songs. It's, you know, I like listening to Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, you know.
Let's get me some Billie Jean. Let's go. I'm
Yeah,
down.
it's like I think it's a choice you have to kind of make for yourself. And yeah, I'm not willing to cancel. I hate using that word in this context because it's
Uh,
another one of those terms that I think has been co-opted by right wingers to just
you know, these young people would cancel everybody.
yeah, well again, I think it's another word that's been co-opted by right wingers just to air their grievances, you know.
We're going too
It's
much
like
into politics at the start of this show.
well, this is more cultural too in a lot of
I
ways, you
know.
know.
I know.
Um you know, it's like I'm not just going to totally say, all right, fuck that person, unless I think they give me a really good reason to. Now, of course, one could argue excusing Michael Jackson, and I'm not excusing him, it's just that I won't not listen to his music, you know, for the allegations against him is worse than not wanting to watch a movie that somebody who disagrees with you politically makes. And I get that. And yeah, it could be a contradiction, but that's something I think that's for the individual to decide, not for the group to decide. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So,
it is.
you know, it's like when everybody says, "Oh, I've been canceled," like the whole the whole Gina Carano thing with Disney and you know everything. And I know she's still suing them, and I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, I really hope Disney wins, quite frankly, because you know I don't really know what her case is. You know, it's like they asked her not to do things, she still did them. And then so they decided, all right, we're not going to work with you again. That's their right. You
Hmm?
know, if they want to say you're going to damage her, if they, you know, it's funny when certain people get mad at corporations and when they don't, you know. And I think a lot of times they get mad at corporations for the wrong reasons, not the right reasons, you know. But I just don't see what her point is. You know, it's like I don't see why I don't see why she has a case to sue them because they decided we don't want to work with you anymore because we asked you not to say certain things. You went and said them. She's not being canceled because she can't speak freely. Again, first of all, freedom of speech means the government cannot do something to you for what you say. That's what
Yeah,
freedom of speech means. It doesn't mean
correct.
freedom from consequences. So if you're
Nope.
being employed by somebody, they tell you don't do this, you do it anyway, and then they decide we're not going to work with you again. Your freedom of speech has not been violated.
Listen, I feel like there's always this divide between celebrities and their jobs and the companies they work for in their entertainment business and people like us who have our 9 to 5 jobs. Because like in Pennsylvania, they have the just cause. They can fire you for a just cause. You walk in the fucking building, and if you're wearing a pair of shoes that the owner doesn't like you wearing, or you're wearing a brand of shoes that they have an issue with, it could be anything. They could fire you for that. There's multiple states that do that. They always have that implementation of just cause. Like North Carolina, I think has that as well. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can fight it if it's something outrageous. Are you going to win? Hmm, it depends on what your case is. If something where, they're firing you and they're just like, well, we just don't think your job performance is right. And when your job performance is good, then you might have a case to fight back if you're able to prove that your job performance is actually better than what they're saying they fired you for. Things of that nature, or, racism or something like that you're being fired for. Yeah, you have just cause to then try to, fight them for firing you for such reasons. But it's kind of like unless it's something of that nature, no one's really fighting, the company that just fired them. They're going to file for unemployment and look for a new job. Um, so I just feel like she thinks in her mind, in her opinion, she was fired for something she shouldn't have been fired for, stop working, and that's fine. I've seen her on some podcasts before, talk about it and stuff like that. I'm like, I get where she's coming from. I feel like sometimes it's more of like standing up to the what I'm looking for. It's like a David Goliath type of thing,
Yeah.
standing up to big corporation or big business and whatnot. You know, I mean, it's interesting. It's been going on for this long, so it's kind of like it's just interesting how neither side has actually been able to win per se or come to a conclusion at this point because it's been a couple years at this point now.
Yeah. In fact, because I'm like, I haven't heard anything about it for a while. So let's see. Gina Carano,
And I've
Disney.
always liked her. Like I watched her MMA career. I watched her start a movie career. I've always liked her. Now, she's been on podcasts where she's specified what she really meant or what her meanings were by her posts on Twitter at the time or X. And she explained it, this, that, and the next thing. So, it's good that she did that. Do I agree with her on all of it? No, but at the same time, that's how she went about wanting to express her feelings about a certain topic.
Oh my God.
What?
So back in October, here's the headline from Deadline. Disney loses latest attempt to stall trial over Gina Carano's Mandalorian firing. Sex discrimination case goes before jury next year. Oh, she's suing for sex discrimination? That's pretty fucking hysterical to me. But here's the thing. The trial will start September 29th, 2025. So this trial is still 8 months away.
Wow.
Unless they come to a settlement, which I'm gonna have to, if the trial's going forward, Disney's been able to delay it or whatever. I have a feeling that they're ultimately gonna end up settling because they don't want it to go to court, you know.
And it kind of makes you think too, like if they settle, it doesn't go to court, is Disney actually hiding something then? Something
Well,
else happened?
that's how they'll spin it. And to be honest, it's not a totally indefensible position. Um, but it's more that corporations don't like going to court.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get that.
And this is something that I know from studying various things uh, for my profession. It gets to the point where coming to a settlement is cheaper. It just is. And trust me when I say corporations will opt for the cheaper option,
Oh, of course.
especially if it's something that could also damage their brand, which a trial could. Even if they end up winning the trial, their brand could still be damaged in the trial.
Yeah.
So,
But then
um,
again, that's where people were like, see, did they do something wrong? They did a settlement. They're just worried about their brand being hurt. And that's where all the other kind of craziness comes into effect when you're. But at the end of the day, is it really going to hurt their brand that much? No. You might have a couple thousand fans, a couple thousand, even 100,000 people who don't buy anything from Disney, but yet there's still the millions of people who still are. So it's not really hurting them in any aspect at the end of the day, honestly. So,
Yeah, so the reason that she was ultimately fired, if you even want to call it that, was that she was making. I know she had made posts about like COVID and vaccines and shit, but apparently
yes.
what the last so in its April 9th dismissal motion against Carano's suit over being fired from The Mandalorian, Disney insisted, as it had before, that the ex-martial arts fighter lost her high-profile Star Wars series gig 3 years ago because of her decision, quote, to publicly trivialize the Holocaust by comparing criticism of political conservatives to the annihilation of millions of Jewish people, notably not thousands, was the final straw for Disney. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what the thousands thing. Did she only say thousands of Jewish people were killed in the Holocaust? Well, yeah, many thousands. Um,
Yeah, that was the post. She was trying to compare.
yeah,
She
I
had
remember.
talked about it.
It's coming back to me now,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm sorry. What she said was fucking bullshit. I'm sorry, it was. And if to me, if you're going to trivialize the Holocaust by saying, "Oh, the way the Jews were persecuted in Nazi Germany, which of course went way beyond persecution and went to annihilation,
Yep.
is the way that some conservatives are persecuted in America, which is obviously not true, being that Trump's back in office." I'm sorry, that's just
At the
fucking
time.
horseshit, and I'm
At the
not going to
time.
take you seriously as a person if you're going to say that. So that's my view. But also, let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Carano's lawyer said after admitting that they discriminated against Carano for her personal political beliefs, you can't be discriminated against them. That's not what discrimination is. I'm sorry. And subjected her to disparate treatment from her similarly, I can never say that word, situated male co-stars. The
Neither can
Disney
I.
company, Lucasfilm, and Huckleberry Industries assert the First Amendment to the Constitution gives them absolute immunity. Defendants are incorrect. Again, if she's suing for sex discrimination because she says that she was treated differently from her male co-stars, that's one thing. You can't roll that in then to say that because they're even saying in their statement there, they're putting the fact that she got fired for her political beliefs as the main reason they're filing the suit, not for sex. I'm sorry, it's not making sense to me.
I understand. I understand where you're coming from with that. Sure.
So
Yeah.
I just you know, but it does remind me of something else to
So,
pivot a little here. Because it's in a slightly similar vein. Like I said, I didn't really remember everything that Gina Carano had said, and now I did. So Tessa Blanchard,
oh. Yeah.
back in TNA, now she's the TNA Women's Champion again, or Knockout Champion, or whatever the fuck they call it. Because she beat Jordan
Um,
Grace last week.
oh no, that was just that wasn't for a title.
Oh,
Somebody else has a title.
I thought it was. Okay, well, I mean, I know it was also mainly as a reason to write Jordan Grace out of TNA, and
Yes,
fully
because that
expect to
was
be. I fully expect to see her in the Royal Rumble next Saturday.
yes, so do I. Yeah, she's a free agent now, and I think
Yeah.
her husband, Josh Alexander, is as well shortly. I believe his contract is up too with TNA because that's who she's married to.
Yeah. It's oh yeah, this is hysterical. Um, well, I'll bring this up in a second. But anyway, so during the show, I believe it was a pay-per-view,
Yes. Oh yes.
she's a racist.
The almost the whole match.
Yeah. Now, I also again I don't remember all the accusations against Tessa Blanchard. I had to look them up, and even then I still don't really remember all of them. But I'm going to take to task somebody who I don't usually take to task, and that person is James E. Cornette.
All right.
Because the fearless cult of Cornette leader
You're the
talked
culture
about this on
coordinate
his
leader.
talked about this on his podcast that
Uh,
was released yesterday or on Friday rather, I'm sorry. And I had a very negative response to it. He
Okay.
was going out of his way, bending over backwards, some might even say, and he was coming off a bit hypocritical with the way that he criticizes some other people for some things, and also where he stands in terms of like Trump and shit like that. He was going way out of his way to defend Tessa Blanchard. The worst part of it, though, and I let me just say, I suspect that one of the reasons he's defending Tessa Blanchard, he likes Tessa Blanchard, he likes her ring work, which is, he is very critical of most every woman. He refuses just to watch most women's matches, which I find tiresome as well. It's
Yes, it
like, dude,
is.
just give it a fucking chance. It's like he basically sounded like he didn't even watch like the Tiffany Bailey match from last week, which I thought was a pretty good match. You know,
He needs to stop with that
he
shenanigans.
really does. He needs to just like look, if you don't want to watch like Chelsea Green or Lyra Valkyria with those titles now, okay, I get it, but I Chelsea Green's growing on me. So
Yeah, she's doing
um
good.
yeah, Lyra Valkyria, I'm still very much, jury's out for me. Um
She's
but
growing on me though.
but anyway, it's like I think one of the reasons he also going bending over backwards is, of course, she's Tully's daughter, and Jim worked with Tully, you know.
Yes, I know. I know.
So I think that's part of it. But the biggest problem I had was he's saying that we don't know what was said, we don't know what happened, we don't know if she was provoked. We need context. I don't think that was his exact quote, but those were essentially what he was saying. Like he's saying we need context for why she used the racial slur against the woman who accused her of using a racial slur against her. I literally was sitting here at my desk listening to it, and when that happened, I literally shouted, "No, we fucking don't! We don't
Yeah.
need context for why somebody used a racial slur. I'm sorry, if you are white and you use a racial slur against a minority, I don't give a fuck if they were provoking you in some way. Call
Yeah.
them an
Yeah.
asshole. Call them a fucking idiot. Call them anything but a fucking racial slur.
Yeah. Yeah. So, where is it at?
So I'm sorry, Jim. You're fucking wrong. And the biggest problem then, too, Brian Last was pushing back a little, but not nearly enough. And
Yeah,
this
not
I
as enough
find
he should
happens a
have.
lot of times whenever Jim takes what I think is the wrong point of view. Last will not push back against him. So it gets really
Let's
annoying.
see.
Also, while you're looking something up, I just want to say it's kind of funny. I went to Jordan Grace's Wikipedia page, and the picture they have of her is from like 28. They have pictures of her from 2018, 2019, when she was not trying to body shame her or anything, but when she was significantly heavier. And I remember Jim got into some hot water a few years ago when he was referring to Jordan Grace and he used the butterface comment. And people were like, oh, he's
Oh,
fat shaming, body shaming. And I'm like, no, he's just using a really tired old joke. But
yeah,
it's like, I do find it because I know Jordan Grace has dropped weight. Because I remember when she was in the Royal Rumble last year, I even said, wait a minute, this is the butterface woman?
yeah, yeah. She
I'm like,
well,
there's nothing wrong. I'm like, she was like really in shape and shit. So yeah,
she she was a power lifter and whatnot. So yeah, at that
yeah,
time, her body type was built for a power lifter, like a
right.
lot of women were. But she's also a professional wrestler. So I mean, I get what he's saying, but at the same time, I get where the people were like, people there were a lot of people that were on her about her weight, but then it's kind of like you're just ignorance. It's just ignorance. You don't understand that she's a power lifter, that like the lifting the weights, what a power lifter eats to get to their strength to be a power lifter. It's totally different than being a professional bodybuilder or being in pro wrestling or this, that, or the next thing. It's totally
Yeah.
different. Your
And
calories and your intake is totally different. So she kind of let the powerlifting go, and then she changed her eating. She changed her diet, her exercise, and now she is what she is now. And she it never bothered me what she looked like before compared to now. Yeah, she looks great now, but she looked fine before then too.
right. It's like it's yeah, like I don't really care. And it's like one of the other reasons that she probably, because it was definitely in her face. I mean, I'm just looking at two different pictures of her, and yeah, facially, it's like you would almost n not really know it's the same woman. One of the other reasons she's only 5'3", and even for a woman, that's a little short.
Yeah, she is five
So
three. Yeah.
when you're heavier and you're shorter, it's going to look like you're heavier than you are. That's just physics, more or less. But yeah, again, I find this a little funny, I guess.
So the whole incident, so fans know, the thing with Tessa Blanchard
Yeah, kind of going
was
back to that part of it.
um Blanchard denies using any racial slur in the past or present. The original allegation was made by, at the time, NWA Women's Champion Allison Kay, who alleged that Blanchard used the N-word on fellow wrestler Black Rose. Rose confirmed the allegation via tweet. And then Allison Kay wrote, "Remember when you spat in a black woman's face and called her the N-word in Japan? Was that you supporting women? The audacity of this tweet." So that
Mhm.
is kind of the situation there. And then adds more controversy. AEW, former AEW wrestler now, because this article is kind of at that time of the situation back in 2020 or 2021. AEW wrestler Big Swole confirmed that the incident did take place and she had spoken to both Blanchard and Rose. And there's some tweets that will not load because they're probably taken down. While Swole and Rose confirmed that it did happen, Blanchard's statement contradicts that and says that the racial slur never occurred. It's hard to gauge whether Blanchard's statement is correct right now. Some women have come forward about the racism allegation, including Shayna and Allison Kay. There are still several women saying that Blanchard was a bully in the locker room. Now, I have heard, and take it for, a grain of salt. I have heard that Tessa Blanchard is hard to work with. Um,
He's kind of proven that just by
y-
what she's done in the past, let alone any
yeah,
accusations of like
yeah. And
racial slurs or bullying.
at that time, even though she was a star, and she was coming up and doing great. She was doing intergender matches and had that great match with Sami Callihan at the pay-per-view.
They
Won
put the
the
world title on her in TNA, right?
Yeah, they did. Yep, they put the world title on her. Kudos to her in regards to that aspect, but it's been known not just in TNA but other wrestling promotions that she's worked at that she has been hard to deal with. So,
Yeah,
she's denying it, and there's three other people saying it happened. So,
yeah, didn't they also have to now I know COVID played a part in it, but wasn't it like she was like in Mexico and she was unwilling to come back into the United States and they basically had to strip her of the TNA title and again, COVID was going on and shit like that, but
yes,
it's
yes,
like it seemed like she was being pretty inflexible, so
correct, correct. Here's another article too. Let's see.
I know Chelsea Green, I think, has also had critical things to say about Tessa. I think she's been one of the people online kind of saying,
Yeah.
you suck, essentially. So
Yeah, Tessa Blanchard, who was previously deemed to be nuclear following several stories of backstage abuse, she began working on WoW, but even there, she had a huge fallout, which I did hear about. Um, During a trip to Japan, Tessa called pro wrestler La Rosa Negra a racial slur before spitting on her. That was something that Negra later said she didn't ask for an apology for, as Blanchard herself denied the allegation. Wait, what? She didn't ask for an apology for,
she
as
didn't ask
Blanchard.
Tessa to apologize for what she had done, I guess.
Yeah, it says that Negra later said
The
she
wording is
didn't.
weird, yeah.
Yeah, later said she didn't ask for an apology for, as Blanchard herself denied the allegation. Interesting. Okay. Blanchard also posted a picture with herself along with La Rosa with a similar message of reconciliation. The two are all smiles in the photo, making it evident that they have buried the hatchet. Time, growth, and healing. Interesting. So La Rosa posted on her Twitter account a picture of her and Tessa. We are human, and our responsibility in this world is to do a better and or be better person to those around us. Being a current person at heart is not said, it is expressed naturally. Love is in the calm, be patient.
Okay.
Then someone, Brian Idle, posted they thought they had a great convo where mistakes were admitted and forgiven. Then they had a follow-up chat today, all is well. And this was in 2023.
Yeah, so one thing I did see a lot of people saying online was, "Oh, can't we just move on?" Or she's apologized, or the person who she supposedly offended has forgiven her. And like, okay, that's fine. I'm not saying I'm unwilling to forgive her for what she has reportedly done and everything. Um, but I also seem to remember her apology, as people are referring to it, wasn't much of an apology. And that was one of the things that Brian Last did mention, that she apologized for what she did without acknowledging what she did. You know what I mean? She was
Yeah,
basically giving like a "I'm sorry for anybody I've offended" apology, not "I'm sorry for my actions" or "I'm sorry that I used a racial slur." It's like that goes a long way with me. When people actually acknowledge, "I'm sorry for what I did, and this is on me," it's like I'm taking steps to be better, or whatever the case might be. Like it's funny because AJ and I were talking about whatever the other night, a lot of things, but he mentioned Peter Warwick for some reason. I can't remember the context. But now that I'm talking about this, I'm reminded of when Peter Warwick was still in Florida State, and I remember he got suspended because he like got arrested and like accused for shoplifting,
hmm,
if you recall.
yep.
I remember watching the game for which he was suspended, and they were interviewing him, and the first thing he said in the interview was, "I want to apologize to all of my teammates and fans, blah, blah, for my actions."
Take responsibility for what you do.
Right. That went a long way with me because I wasn't a Florida State fan or a fan of his or anything, but I'm like, he went and said, "I want to apologize to everybody for my actions. Not I apologize for to everybody I've offended, but I apologize for my actions." To me, I was like, okay, he took accountability for what he did.
Yep.
There was, Joe and I, of course, both worked for T-Mobile, and one of my supervisor I had a couple times at T-Mobile is one of my favorite supervisors there. Actually, probably my absolute favorite supervisor. He had a coaching style where he would like ask you, "Did you do this on a call?" He wasn't asking because he wanted to know if you did. He was asking because you knew you did.
He knew that you did.
And he wanted to see if you remembered, because it's very possible to forget maybe what you did on a specific call with how many calls you get every day and everything, especially if
Yeah,
he's like, giving you a coaching on Thursday and he's talking about a call you had on Monday. Uh,
could have had 100 calls on Monday.
right, exactly. Um, so there's that. But he was mostly asking to see if you would take accountability for it. There was one person on a team that I was on with him who would never admit to doing things that he asked her about doing, even though he knew that she did them. I think it got to the point where he would actually start playing back the calls for her, and she would still kind of say, "That's not what I did." Needless to say, eventually she was let go.
Here's the
Um,
evidence, but you're still denying it.
right.
Okay.
So what I'm basically saying is the worst thing you can do is deny you did something when you did it. Like it's bad enough you did the thing, okay?
Yep.
The cover up, so to speak, just to use a blanket statement, makes it worse.
Mhm.
Why was Richard Nixon about to be impeached? It wasn't for the crime of the break-in at the Watergate. It was for the cover up of the break-in at the Watergate.
Yep.
He may not have ever been impeached if, it just became, well, he probably would have actually been, but
Yeah,
the
probably.
cover up made it like 10 times worse, you know? So, yeah.
It did. It
So
did.
when you're going to go out there and say, again, I don't, and like I said, I don't have her exact apology statement in front of me, but I remember it was of the like, "I'm sorry for," it was more of the "I'm sorry for offending people" variety. It wasn't "I'm sorry for what I did."
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the same, that's the same shit I'll draw this parallel. It's the same shit for why people were still pissed at Terry. Because when he apologized for being caught on tape and everything, again, we mentioned the guys like Titus O'Neil and the New Day more or less said his
Yeah.
apology was the "I'm sorry I got caught" apology, not the "I'm sorry for what I said" apology.
Yes. 100%. Like you're on video, okay? It's on audio. Like the video's there, the audio's there, whatever the case may be. You were upset. I don't care what you were on. Listen, just be
Sorry
like,
that you didn't know you were being recorded.
listen, yeah, you were in a bad place at that time. Your life was shit for multiple reasons. But with that being said, please own up to it. I said it. I did it. I apologize. I've moved forward. I've learned what do the right thing, damn it. And you know what? There were some people, some former black wrestlers who had talked to Hogan one-on-one, and the one-on-one seemed to be better. What's the word I'm looking for? Better, God, I have a brain fart with words today. Better accepted
Yeah,
than his overall speech to the whole locker room, right? So, that is it's good, but he should have just done that in the first place.
right.
Don't fart around with some stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like, listen, there's tons of fucking pro wrestlers who've made mistakes over the years and done shitty things, this, that, and the next thing. Just fucking own up to it. Your business is not like an like not it's not an ordinary sports entertainment business. It's not like baseball, football, basketball, hockey. Pro wrestling's on a different level, different demeanor, all that stuff. We get it. But just own up to what you said. And it's interesting too. Like over the years, I guess this is something where, um, you know, every person's different. I remember bringing this up before. So when we went to WrestleMania, Hogan and Titus O'Neil were the guests, the presenters, whatever the fuck they want to call them, for
Yeah, that
WrestleMania.
was the 2021 WrestleMania, the
Correct.
post-COVID one.
You know, and people were wondering, like how Titus O'Neil felt about doing this with Hogan, so on and so on. And I remember the biggest thing I wanted to see at that WrestleMania when you went there was to see if any of the black community were going to don any Hogan stuff. And while we were walking around getting food, I had counted 38 black males that were wearing Hogan paraphernalia, were wearing Hogan gear. The NWO Hogan, some were wearing the red and yellow Hogan. So I'm like, okay, so these fans have probably forgiven him. They're not going to forget. You never forget. You should never forget. Always, you want to forgive, fine, but never forget. I understand that. So it was interesting. I was kind of curious. So it was like 38 that I counted during the course of the night. There might have been more. Who knows? We're in our seats. We're trying to watch a WrestleMania up in the nosebleed seats on the Titantron above the ring. But no, I was just curious. And then, I just kind of seen, Hogan's social media and just kind of seeing like when he's doing signings, like how many black people are actually showing up, like how many people are really pissed off at him. And like if they are, fully granted, they should be. So it was just, kind of like tracking that. But then what does Hogan do? He goes and not trying to bring politics back in, but he's doing his stuff for Trump, which is fine. It does what he wants to do. But then some of the racial stuff he starts mentioning on the tour about what was it, the Indians or whatever. And he made some stupid comment about that shit. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get heat for that, brother." Yeah, bro.
Yeah, yeah, you
Someone
are
who
because you're
says,
fucking ignorant. Yeah, he said that Kamala Harris is part Indian, and then he goes,
"Yeah, yeah, that's
"Oh,
it. That was it." Yeah.
yeah, not that Indian, dumbass."
I don't care how many of your fucking Hulkamania beers you were drinking before, and just like it's just stupidity. And
Yeah,
then
well,
the and
I never buy that excuse. Oh, I had too much to drink. Yeah,
yeah,
and what does alcohol do? It reveals the real person because you don't have your inhibitions and your wherewithal to restrict yourself.
yeah. The other thing too that I think people were pissed off about Terry was his comment that he made on the Logan Paul show, where Logan Paul had brought up like some of the stuff in his past, and he made the comment. I'm just paraphrasing because I don't remember. I watched it, I don't remember exactly how he said, where if fans can forgive Benoit for what he did, then fans can forgive me for stuff I've done. And I was
Right.
just like,
And it's like this, yeah, this is the thing that we've kind of talked about, and I've seen plenty of people online say, wait a minute, people forgave Benoit? When?
I'm like, who is the only person that I know of that has forgiven Benoit is probably his son who's still alive. And that's just that is his son. That's different. Everyone
Yeah, and
else,
his son doesn't exactly have an easy.
he hasn't had an easy life,
Try to
period.
live with
Since
that.
yeah,
Try to live with the knowledge that your father killed your stepmother, your half brother, and then himself.
yeah, yeah, that's a shit life to have to live. Have to deal with that. So yeah, I mean, he's the only one to me that's allowed to forgive his dad for anything. Everyone else, no. So I it just the comment, the things he said, some of his comments and some of the podcasts he's been doing is just like, man, you're just digging.
It just shows how tone deaf he is.
Yes.
You know,
Hence,
and that's what I that's something that I to try to just briefly get political again. That's something that I always criticize somebody like Nancy Pelosi for. Ostensibly, Nancy Pelosi is on the same side of the political spectrum that I am, but I've always said that Nancy Pelosi is incredibly fucking tone deaf about most everything.
correct.
And that's
She
why I don't
is.
like her, you know. But yeah, when you come off as tone deaf and you seem to lack that awareness, it's like, what are you doing?
Yes.
What are
Hence, I mean,
what who's like advising you?
and it baffles me where like I found God, blah, blah,
Oh
blah.
yeah, that's the other thing for me. And like, look, I don't want to knock anybody's religious beliefs. I hate when religious belief suddenly becomes an all too easy excuse for people, or it becomes like the way that people get past a controversy. They're like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
have found God. I have found Jesus. Please forgive me for all my transgressions." And then when you see all these people who may have been critical of them before, who are all just go, "Okay."
And
Like
that only
on
works
Cornette's
with
show
certain
several months
people.
ago, that they aired clips of him on like I want to say it was like a fucking like 700 Club podcast, and the guy's just like all fawning over him.
Oh
And
God.
it's because, yeah, you're using the religion to repair your image. They, in turn, are using you as a cause celeb, to just enhance their own profile too, and to try to get people, watching or listening to their shit then because, hey, we've got, WWE legend Hulk Hogan on our show.
And to be honest with you, I think the only ones that really benefited from finding God was Sting and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, that was the funny thing. Because Michaels was on Saturday Night's Main Event last night, and also because I've been rewatching all the Royal Rumble matches again over the last week or so. I'm up through 2009 now.
Oh, real quick, and this is what I want to say. This is the other reason why Hogan's daughter Brooke has distanced herself from him,
I was
and
going to mention that, yeah.
she just had babies. She had twins.
She had twins, and congratulations to her.
Yes, congrats to you. That's awesome. And it's
Yeah,
kind of like I saw that post the other day, and I'm like, wow, she is really she is really doing her own thing and staying away from her dad and her brother. She probably talks to her mom more than she talks to her dad, which is, I get it.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's something funny too. uh, I was thinking about just going back to Sean real quick.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it was like it was during one of the later Royal Rumble matches that he was in. So we're talking like '07, '08, I think it was. And he was wearing like the pants at that point that had like the like all like the little like crosses going down the
Oh,
legs.
yeah, yeah.
And I just kind of, I kind of chuckled and I said, you know, I always kind of sneer at that born again stuff because I really truly wonder how many of these people really actually live that then, or if they're just using that as an excuse or a way to just like, have people excuse them or whatever. I said, he's the one guy that I think we can legitimately point to where it did actually make a difference because there are so many stories about what he was like back in the 90s and everything.
Hmm.
And, doing the pills and being an asshole and this, that, and the other thing. And he does seem like a completely different person. That's why I always say, yeah, I much prefer 2000s Shawn Michaels to 90s Shawn Michaels because I think he was just a better person then.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, about Hogan, yeah, that's the whole thing. So the reports were a couple days ago that Hogan wasn't going to be on Saturday night's main event last night, and he wasn't because he had family commitments. And of course, I was most
Okay.
most well, yeah, most everybody was basically saying like, oh yeah, sure, like everybody was using like the Sure Jan memes and that kind of shit. Somebody said Nick was getting married, and if Nick was getting married, obviously he needs to be there than at Saturday night's main event. And the
Yeah,
fact that
yeah.
if that's true, that he did actually go to his son's wedding, then Saturday night's main event is also a little surprising. I of course also had to, when I saw that, I had to make a joke. Gee, I hope they weren't serving his beer at the wedding, given his son's history.
Oh yeah, I think he just got in trouble again for some DUI shit or something like that.
So he went to jail for being responsible for the death of the guy who was in the car with him when he was drunk, and he's still drinking and driving. Great. So yeah, this is the thing. I remember when his first wife, Linda, divorced him. I remember thinking that it was opportunistic on her part. Like she had done it right after they had done the fucking reality show. And that she was doing it maybe to like try to boost her own profile and just to basically to take all of his money and shit. And I was like, so has she always been a gold digger or blah blah blah. Now the years have gone on, it's gone to the point where I've said, maybe she just finally said, you know what, I'm tired of this fucker and his bullshit and I'm getting out of here now. You know?
Yeah.
Now I know she took up with younger guys, so it's like maybe there's a little bit, maybe it was a little column A, a little column B. Um, but in retrospect, I think it's yeah, I think I was wrong to ever doubt her reasons for wanting to get away from him.
I'm just looking now to see, is Nick Hogan married? And I'm not seeing anything.
Well, I mean, it would have only just taken place this weekend, so
Hmm, yeah, you know how social media is though.
no, that's very true. Yeah, if his son was getting, well, maybe he's getting married today. I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say that at the same time with, most people would probably be like posting on social media, oh, my son got married, and Hogan
Yeah.
definitely, Terry would definitely be the person to do something like that. So,
Oh, of course. Um, let's see. Let's see. I'm curious now.
well,
Nicholas
again, yeah,
Anthony Bolea is his full name.
I don't even remember who it was that I saw that had the report saying, oh, Nick's getting married.
Ah, true. It could be, some bullshit stuff too. You never know.
Well,
Oh, he
also because
was.
I think one of the people who might have reported that might have been Uncle Dave, and you know how he
Oh
is.
yeah, fucking Uncle Dave and his reports these days. Um,
Yeah, it's like, I'm
yes.
sorry, sir, I'm going to need about three forms of verification before I believe whatever you say.
Well, it looks like Nick was or might still be dating someone named. I saw her name. Tanya Leah. Tanya Lay,
Okay.
who was an adult actress. Ooh.
Seriously?
Yes.
Well, that's the most. Balea thing I guess I could think of. His son getting married to a porn star. And look, I'm not sneering at porn stars. I'm just
No, no. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out if he's still in a relationship with her. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not sneering at porn stars at all. They have a very hard job, which is,
Tanya
for
is
our
an adult film
for our
actress.
pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Boy,
Trying to find a more recent one here. He is currently dating pornographic actress Tanya Leah.
now see that makes it sound dirty, okay? What's wrong with
Yeah, it
saying
should
adult
just adult
actress?
actress is just so much better.
Because after all,
Um,
what is pornography? Remember? I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Whichever fucking Supreme Court justice it was that said that back in the day was probably fucking Scalia.
oh, so funny, so funny, so funny.
Because, that's one of the other things, of course, that some people want to try to start doing again now is to ban porn. And it's like, yeah, because of all the problems in the world, pornography and being legal is high up there. Assholes.
It's crazy. Like he's in his 30s now too. Jesus.
Well, yeah.
It's just it's one of those things like time, you know, how quick time moves, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, that's the thing with watching some of these older Royal Rumbles and just remembering just how long ago they are. And like when DiBiase showed up on Saturday night's main event last night and seeing how old he is now, which of course he's got I think he's now like 70 or so. But the problem is, and applies to like any form of entertainment, that vision of what they looked like when you watch them is what's always kind of crystallized into your head. But this applies much more for like athletes and like wrestlers than it does for say like actors or singers, because actors and singers can keep going, so you see them age and get older. But wrestlers and athletes, once their careers are over, you usually really don't see them. At least you don't see them on a consistent basis. So you still have that vision of Ted DiBiase the way he looked in 1990, as that's Ted DiBiase. And then you see Ted DiBiase 2025 and go, oh right, he's 70 now, not 35.
Yeah.
you know
Yes.
Sadly, people
Oh.
age. They don't get to look like they did in their 30s for the rest of their lives, unless they get a lot of work done.
All right,
Um,
fans. I'm going to admit here, I have seen his girlfriend in several videos. All right. I know who she is now.
what's her name again?
Tanya, it's spelled Tana, and her last name is Lea.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know who she is.
There aren't many
And I'm not ashamed to say it.
there aren't many adult actresses whose names I really remember, to be honest. So there are a few, but not all. So she could be someone I've seen that I just don't remember. But yeah.
I don't know
So
how
here's
old
something
she
pretty
is.
funny, kind of switching
Yes.
subjects here again.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
So congratulations to Ichiro, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner for being elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
100% yes.
So, all the various stupid little files and shit that I keep for my own edification, I guess. I have one which breaks down every team in baseball by, the number of Hall of Fame players they've had. And I realize I really kind of have to go back and redo this list a little because I have it
Okay.
broken down into two tabs, players and managers and executives. But I make mention of when a guy who's like a Hall of Fame player may not have played for the team, but like managed the team. So, like for the Nationals, for example, they have two Hall of Famers, and I'm just counting the Nationals, not the Expos here. Ivan Rodriguez and Frank Robinson. And of course, Frank Robinson did not play for the Washington Nationals. He managed them. So I realize I kind of actually really need to redo this. But anyway, my point is there are now six Hall of Fame members who played for the Florida/Miami Marlins.
Okay.
Andre Dawson, Trevor Hoffman, Mike Piazza, Tim Raines, Ivan Rodriguez, and now Ichiro. Ichiro played more games as a Marlin than any of the others. And when we think of Ichiro Suzuki and his baseball career, we all remember his time with the Miami Marlins, don't we?
Yeah, it just pops up in my head.
But the Marlins could always say this: "Hey, we've got more Hall of Famers who played for us than the Devil Rays slash Rays, the Nationals, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, and even the Royals."
Oh Lord.
Seriously, the Royals have only ever had four guys play for them who made the Hall of Fame: George Brett, Orlando Cepeda, Harmon Killebrew, and Gaylord Perry. Now, obviously, Brett was a career Royal. The other three guys had very brief Royal tenures. So it's like the
It's
Royals have been around for 20 years longer than the Marlins have. So it's like, yeah.
it's interesting when you put it in that aspect because that's when I start to be like, it's kind of like football, where say, I'll just say OJ Simpson. OJ played for the 49ers for what, a year or two or something like that?
Uh, yeah, it was not long. I'm gonna look it up because I'm actually curious myself now.
Because it's like it's one of those things where like I see like football teams Hall of Famers and they have a list and this list is huge, but yet they have like the true Hall of Famers that are counted for them in bold
2 years.
2 years. And it's kind of like, if you look at San Francisco's Hall of Fame page, it might be like, oh, Hall of Famer OJ Simpson. Yeah, he played for you guys for 2 years, but he's not in the Hall of Fame with a 49ers helmet on. He's in there with a Buffalo Bills helmet on.
Yeah, several years ago now, me and my Yankee friends, I remember one of us posted in our Facebook group, which is mostly defunct now because we moved to Discord.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Discord's
Yeah,
good.
the Discord works a lot better, frankly.
Yeah.
Um, but we were mocking how a website or a newspaper's website, I don't remember which it was. It's kind of the same thing when you think about it. We were mocking how they were saying like the headline was something like former Red Sox, blah blah blah, elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And it was somebody who barely played for the Red Sox. Yes, they did play for the Red Sox in their career, but nobody thinks of that person as being a Red Sox. I'm looking at the list of Red Sox Hall of Famers and I'm trying to remember who it was, and I'm not remembering looking at this list. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was Andre Dawson because
Mm.
everybody else, or okay, it was either Andre Dawson or it was John Smoltz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, and again, yeah, both of those guys, their Red Sox tenures were brief. Dawson played from 1976 to 1996. He was with the Expos for the first 11 years of his career. Then he was
Mhm.
with the Cubs for the next 6 years. And then he played 2 seasons each for the Red Sox and the Marlins. And he unfortunately wasn't very good in those years.
I remember the Marlin years, but I don't remember the Red Sox years, and that's kind of weird.
He was with the Red Sox in 93 and 94. He was a negative WAR player. He was just DHing, but like this was kind of like really the beginning of the steroid era when we look at the retrospective. So like his OPS pluses were below 100, which means he was a below average hitter. But in his 2 years with the Red Sox, he hit 260, 297, 441 with 29 home runs and 800 plate appearances. So yeah, he wasn't producing anymore.
Yeah, he had
Uh,
bad knee issues too. That was his biggest thing.
well, yeah, he was 38 and 39 by then. So it was
Hmm.
like the Red Sox were probably hoping that he still had something left in his bat. But the Red Sox those 2 years went 80 and 82 and 54 and 61. So the Red Sox weren't contending those years either.
No, no.
John Smoltz's Red Sox tenure was even briefer. After spending all of his pro career or major league career rather with the Braves from 1988 to 2008, the Braves let him go because he was in his 40s, and he had missed most of the 2008 season, and he was terrible for the Red Sox in 2009. He was 2-5 with an ERA over 8
Holy shit.
in 8 starts, and I vividly remember how it basically ended for him with the Red Sox, because 2009 was a great season for me as a Yankees fan since the Yankees won the World Series.
Correct.
But his very last game for the Red Sox was a game in Yankee Stadium in early August that the Yankees won 13-6. Smoltz started the game. He went 3 1/3 innings, gave up 9 hits, 8 runs, walked 4, struck out 3, and gave up 2 home runs. So
Then he it wasn't that then he converted to a reliever after that, right?
no, that was earlier when he was with the Braves.
Oh,
He
okay,
closed
okay.
for a few years after he came back from like an arm surgery, and then they decided to move him back into the rotation.
Okay, okay.
Johnny Damon and Melky Cabrera were the guys who took him deep that night. But the Red Sox let him go after that, and he finished out the seasons with the Cardinals, which ended up being his last season in the league. He was a lot better with the Cardinals, but he still wasn't great or anything. But I always say I hate listening to John Smoltz as an announcer. He has this very weird passive aggressive style of announcing
Yeah,
where
he
you can
does.
tell who he's rooting for, but he doesn't do it enthusiastically, but you can tell if you just listen to what he says.
Yeah. No,
Um,
100%.
yeah, and he obviously hates the Yankees, and I say he hates the Yankees for two reasons. One, because the Yankees beating the Braves in those two World Series,
Yes.
and two, because they effectively ended his career. They destroyed him that night, and that was it for him. But yeah, as far as him converting to a reliever, so he missed the entire 2000 season with an injury. When he came back in 2001, they used him out of the bullpen. Like at first, it was he wasn't really closing, but he kind of became the closer, and then he was their closer for the next 3 seasons, and he was actually really good.
Yeah, because I remember he was doing really well in the reliever spot.
Yeah. So from '02 to '04, he saved like 150 games in 3 seasons, 144. And he was like really effective at it. Like it's funny, like his first year as the closer, he saved 55 games, which led the league, and he had an ERA of 3.25, and they finished third in the Cy Young voting, which is kind of ridiculous. But the next year he was actually better. His ERA was barely over 1, and he still had 45 saves. He didn't get any Cy Young votes that year, though. Figure that one out. But
Interesting.
in 2005, they moved him back into the rotation, and he still had 3 good years in '05, '06, and '07 as a starter again. And he was doing well in '08, but then he missed most of that season. He only pitched 28 innings. So
Hmm.
yeah. So John Smoltz, go fuck yourself.
I just feel bad for Ichiro for that one douchebag voter who did not vote for him.
Yeah, this is the same shit we went over a few years ago when Derek Jeter fell one sh vote short of unanimous. And also going back a few years prior to that, Ken Griffey Jr. was like, I think 3 votes short of unanimous.
This makes no sense. Like
That's the whole
legitimately.
thing. I just want to know why. I don't want to
Yes.
mock you. I don't want to scorn you. Um, but it's like the why is what puzzles my mind. Now, so here's the thing. There is, in my view, one reason to not vote for Ichiro that I would deem semi-acceptable. Okay. And that is if you wanted to vote for 10 other guys. So let's say you wanted to vote for guys who were newcomers to this year's ballot who fell off the ballot but got some votes like Russell Martin and Brian McCann and Ian Kinsler. If you wanted to vote for one of those guys to try to help keep them on the ballot, and you knew Ichiro was going to sail in, which he obviously did,
Still,
then I get that, even though I disagree with it, because I'm still like, you should really still be voting for who you think are the 10 best players on the ballot if you're choosing to vote for 10 players. But here's the thing. I don't think I'm going on a much of a limb to say I'm almost positive that the guy who didn't vote for Ichiro did not vote for 10 guys.
oh no.
Just as the same that I'm pretty sure the guy who didn't vote for Jeter didn't vote for 10 guys, you know?
It,
Now, I hold on, let me pull the tracker back up here.
is
Uh,
all the people who vote, are they all sports writers or is it a mixture? I forget with baseball.
well, that's the whole thing. They purged the roles a couple years ago to make it so that you had to have been covering baseball. I think it was like if you haven't covered baseball for 10 years, then you can't vote anymore. Which, to be honest, I don't think is a perfect system either, because the guys that
Oh.
might still be on the ballot might still be guys that you covered when you did cover baseball. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because there's the 5 year waiting period, and then you could be on the ballot for 10 years. But let's say I haven't covered baseball for 10 years. I can't vote anymore. But wait a minute, I covered Omar Vizquel and Manny Ramirez. They're still on the ballot.
Correct.
So, but I think that's what they did. I think it's like if you haven't been like an active like baseball writer or baseball media person in some way like that, um, yeah, you can't vote anymore. Like they don't allow you to vote. So there have been 227 of the 394 ballots that were cast that have been revealed publicly in one form or another.
Hmm.
I think they give a 2 week waiting period now before the Hall of Fame makes public all ballots where the voter said, okay, you can reveal my ballot. Which means there will be like more ballots revealed publicly.
Yeah.
Um, I would be very shocked again if the person who didn't vote for Ichiro has his ballot publicly revealed. So we'll never know unless that person comes out and says it. And they probably won't now for fear of being ridiculed and flamed and whatever, which I get. But I guess I just wish, I think Ichiro even said, yeah, I just want to have a beer with the guy.
I just curious, like, why did you vote for me?
Yeah. Now, as long as you do it politely, I don't really see a problem with that. Just don't get obsessed over that. I remember a Frasier episode where he was like had a focus group and there was one guy who didn't like his show when everybody else did, and he like started obsessing over why this guy didn't like his show, and then he ended up accidentally burning down the guy's newsstand. And then the guy finally told him why he didn't like him.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, he was played by Tony Shalhoub too. That was kind of funny. So I was still
What is,
pre-mugged for Tony Shalhoub.
isn't it you need 5% to stay on the ballot? Is that
You
what
need
it
to get
is?
5% to stay on the ballot. 75% for elections. So there
So
were
that means Ian Kinsler, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, Troy Tulowitzki, Curtis Granderson, Adam Jones, Carlos Gonzalez, Hanley Ramirez, Fernando Rodney, and Ben Zobrist will not be on next year's ballot.
right.
Torrey
Tory
Hunter
Hunter,
just
I think,
made it.
yeah, Tory
5.1.
Hunter barely survived. He was looking like
He had 20 votes.
he was going to miss it this year after being on the ballot for a couple of years. But he just got over the 5% at the end of the day. Yeah, there are guys who fall off the ballot, every year. Like last year, Jose Batista, Victor Martinez, Bartolo Colon, Matt Holliday, Adrian Gonzalez, Brandon Phillips, Jose Reyes, and James Shields didn't get 5%. The year before that, it was Bronson Arroyo, R.A. Dickey, John Lackey, Mike Napoli, Houston Street, Matt Cain, Jacoby Ellsbury, Andre Ethier, J.J. Hardy, Johnny Peralta, Jared Weaver, and Jason Worth.
I was just wondering because I know I wanted to see how many votes Burley got. I mean, he got 45 for 11.4%, so that's decent.
Listen to this list of names who couldn't get 5% in 2022. Joe Nathan, Tim Hudson, Tim Lincecum, Ryan Howard, Mark Teixeira, Justin Morneau, Jonathan Papelbon, Prince Fielder, AJ Pierzynski, Carl Crawford, and Jake Peavy. You could build a pretty good team out of those players.
Prince Fielder didn't even get 5%.
Prince Fielder only got 2 votes.
Holy shit.
You got to remember, Prince Fielder's career unfortunately ended so abruptly,
Yeah, it did. It did, I
and
guess. I remember that.
they don't seem to give people the Kirby Puckett benefit of the doubt anymore.
Yeah.
Tim Hudson also, when he fell off the ballot that year, was actually his second year on the ballot. He had gotten more than 5% the year before, but with the addition of some of those first-time people the following year, which included David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, and Jimmy Rollins, I think, yeah, he just fell. Yeah, Burley's hanging in there. He gained some votes this time. He didn't gain nearly as many votes as Andy Pettit did. Uh, Pettit's numbers shot up, which kind of surprised me. I still don't think Andy Pettit's ever going to make it, but obviously, since he was such a longtime Yankee, I won't object to it if he does.
No, yeah, of course.
I remember it was Jason Stark of The Athletic. He, in his article, explained why he voted for Pettit for the first time, but he didn't vote for Burley or Felix Hernandez. And he basically said that, hey, we're going to have to change the way we evaluate starting pitchers going forward. And that was one of the reasons why he decided to vote for Pettit. Like the postseason stuff helped, I think he said push him to vote for Pettit. And it sounded like he could vote for Felix Hernandez and Mark Burley in future years, but um, Burley's still pretty low down the ballot. Hernandez got 20% on his first go. I'll be interested to see if he improves next year because next year's batch of first timers, Cole Hamels is the best first timer next year.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, there's no slam dunk candidates next year. So, Carlos Beltran, who fell, I think it was like a small handful of votes short this year, will probably get in next year. Andrew Jones could.
Okay.
Um, they're the only ones who I say have a shot of election next year. Everybody else is still too far away. Chase Utley will be interesting to see if he climbs. Manny Ramirez is in his last year on the ballot, but he hasn't really driven much up above like 34%. So I don't think, he's not going to get in.
Yeah, I
Him
don't
and
think so.
A-Rod have been like in the same central place ever since they both hit the ballot. So it's just they're going to be and they're not getting anywhere as high as Bonds and Clemens ever did. So I just don't see them ever getting elected.
Burley was pretty look at his stats. He was pretty durable.
Yep, that's one of
He
his
he started well, besides his rookie year,
selling points, if you will.
he's pitched 30 plus games every single year. Even his time in Miami, 31 games started. Toronto 3 years, 33, 32, 33. He had
Well,
double
yeah,
digit wins in every single season he pitched except for his rookie year.
yeah, but that's the thing. You look from 2001 to 2014, he pitched over 200 innings every year, and even in 2015, his last year, he pitched 198 and two-thirds. So for all intents and purposes, he basically pitched 200.
Yeah, yeah, he wow.
The thing against Burley is his ERA is high but again, it's not high for his era. Like his ERA is 3.81, which would be one of the highest ERAs in the Hall of Fame. But his ERA plus is 117, which would not be one of the lowest numbers in the Hall of Fame. In fact, that's probably better than a lot of Hall of Fame pitchers. Um, he doesn't have he does he only made four, no, I'm sorry, five All-Star games. He won four Gold Gloves, which is good. He only got Cy Young votes in his career once.
Yeah, and that kind of surprised me looking at, well,
Yeah. Well, the problem is that he wasn't a strikeout pitcher. Like one of the
uh,
things that definitely pushed CC Sabathia to get in,
he was a
and
ground ball he was a ground ball pitcher.
I was surprised that CC got in as easily as he did. I wondered if he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he got in pretty well over the mark. But CC now in addition to having the Cy Young and the World Series win, which Burley doesn't have, CC of course had 3,000 strikeouts. Burley didn't even have 2,000 strikeouts in his career.
Yeah, he was a ground ball guy.
Yeah.
That
And
was that was his
we
thing.
are in an era where strikeouts are much more commonplace. So that could be something that hurt him. He's got a decent WAR number, and I know a lot of people like to belittle WAR, and that's fine. One thing I like to look at, they have this the JAWS system, which
Hmm.
is what this one guy uses, which incorporates WAR and other stats into like, and valuing like peaks and things like that. So among starting pitchers, he's got Burley ranked 79th, which there's a lot of non-Hall of Fame pitchers ahead of him. but he's ahead of a few Hall of Fame pitchers too, like Whitey Ford and Sandy Koufax, mostly because Sandy Koufax's career was brief.
It's fought 4 Gold Gloves too. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So like if Burley ever got into the Hall of Fame, he would not be the worst Hall of Fame pitcher, But like I said, there's some of the non-Hall of Fame pitchers who are ahead of him on that leaderboard that aren't tied to PEDs or being an asshole, meaning Clemens and Schilling,
Yeah.
or aren't eligible for the Hall of Fame yet. You've got guys like Kevin Brown and Rick Russell and Louis Tiant and David Cohn and Brett Saberhagen and Dave Stieb and Kevin Apier and Chuck Finley and Johan Santana and Tim Hudson. So, you know, it would get to the point where it's like, well, hey, if Burley ever got in, you'd have to reconsider some of those guys, which I wouldn't really be opposed to be honest. But like if Felix Hernandez ever gets in the Hall of Fame, somebody's really going to have to go back and say, should Johan Santana be in the Hall of Fame?
Mm. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, they have pretty similar numbers in a lot of ways. So, but the problem is Johan Santana's already off the writers' ballot, so he'd have to get elected by the committee, which it's hard to predict those committees sometimes. Like they've corrected some mistakes, with like some guys like Ron Santo, though that was like a different form of the committee and everything. But and not to possibly offend your White Sox fan sensibilities, they also elected Harold Baines, which I always liked Harold Baines, but when you come right down to it, he really falls below the mark in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, no, I get it. I get it.
And now, of course, in about a week and a half, we will get the results of the Football Hall of Fame.
Oh boy. That's gonna be a fucking shit show.
Well, I don't know if it'll be a shit show, but there will be the one very controversial aspect, if you will, which of course is Eli Manning. There's, he's so here are the 15 finalists of which they'll select no more than five. Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Jari Evans, Antonio Gates, Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning, Steve Smith, Terrell Suggs, Fred Taylor, Adam Vinatieri, Reggie Wayne, Darren Woodson, and Marshall Yanda. Now, of those, five of these guys are eligible for the first time. Kuechly, Manning, Suggs, Vinatieri, and Yanda. The other guys have been on the ballot before. I think they've all been finalists before, some for more years than others. So it'll be interesting to see who gets in. It's like they've got three wide receivers on this ballot. They've got, you know, two defensive backs, so they're different positions. There's two guards, there's, two different types of linebackers. Eli's the only quarterback on the ballot. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
What five are you picking? If you pick five.
Out of that list of five, who would I pick?
Yeah.
It's hard because I can see cases for all of them, you know. Gates definitely. I was still surprised he didn't get in on his first ballot last year. But Gates would be the definite for me. I'm voting for Eli. I'm sorry. The standard that they really seem to have set with Hall of Fame quarterbacks is as much about winning as it is about stats. And I'm sorry, but Eli's got two rings and two Super Bowl MVPs.
Yeah. I'll definitely with you on. I would vote for Eli. Antonio Gates is my other one, 100%. I'd be
Yeah.
voting for.
I would vote for the two of them. I would vote for Reggie Wayne. I think he's better than Holt and Smith, even though I kind of think both of those guys have good cases. I would vote for Jared Allen, and I think I would vote for Terrell Suggs. Like I said, I could find reasons to vote for almost all of those guys, I think, but I think those would be the five that I would pick.
I would probably take. I'm gonna take Eli. I'm gonna take Antonio Gates. I'm gonna take Eric Allen. The wide receivers, I'll take Suggs for sure. And then is that four I just picked?
I think so.
It's weird because I want to pick Adam Vinatieri. You know what I mean? Like
I
that dude's Mr. Reliable. Like all the game-winning kicks he's fucking had, Super Bowl game-winning kicks.
yeah.
It's like how do you not look at that?
Right. And I think that will probably be why he gets in. But, I also, of course, say that those kicks that he made that he's so famous for weren't the hardest of kicks.
No, but it's still pressure. Like I
No,
don't have
yeah,
any.
it is. I also look at it this like too. This is going to sound hypocritical because I think we've talked before about, well, if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter if you get in first ballot or not, or blah 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 blah. You're going to put a kicker in on this first ballot. There's
Hey,
so few kickers in the Hall of Fame.
but are they deserving of it? That's the thing. Like,
Yeah. The
like,
kickers who are in the Hall of Fame, I think definitely are. It's like Jan Stenerud and Morton Anderson and
yeah.
a couple other. I can't remember who else.
So for Fred Taylor, I don't want to say a hard no. I'm a no on him. I have to review like what he's done in his career. Like I know and
Yeah,
I don't know.
Taylor is one who I don't think quite makes the cut for me. I don't know that Darren Woodson really does either, and that's probably some Cowboys bias.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I get where you're going. Like I had to Kuechly is another one. He's a
Kuechly, my
no.
issue with him is that his career was short, but they've also established a precedent with Patrick Willis that it really doesn't matter if your career was short as long as it was impactful. But I also
I
would then have to say, well, I don't think Kuechly should get in on the first ballot then because neither did Patrick Willis, if I recall.
don't think he did
And
either.
also, I'm saying I think there's five guys who are more deserving than Kuechly on this ballot. And of course, the problem is you can say that for forever because next year there will be a crop of newcomers who will be first time eligible. You know, so
It's
that's
like
one of my other things with Eli.
I could make a case for Troy Holt too. Reggie
Yeah,
Wayne was
yeah,
good. Steve Smith was a beast, but I'd have to like for the wide receivers, I have to like put a comparison together to see like who I would vote for first. You know what I mean?
yeah.
In
This
regards to that.
this is my fear with Eli. If he doesn't get in this year, I don't know when he will, because Drew Brees and Philip Rivers will be eligible next year.
Mm,
Brees will breeze in
yes, he
as
will.
well. He should.
Pun intended.
Rivers has some better stats than Eli, but he doesn't have like the intangibles, the rings.
Yeah, yeah.
In 2 years, Ben Roethlisberger will be eligible.
Mm.
In 3 years, Brady hits the ballot.
Oh, wouldn't that be funny? Let's put
And
Brady and Eli in at the same time. The guy
there's
who
almost there's almost no chance it will happen. If you look, if
the
you
guy who beat you
look
twice.
If you look at the Hall of Fame classes on a year by year basis, very rarely will you see guys from the same multiple guys from the same position in the same class. Not
Which
saying it's impossible,
it's so stupid though.
but that they tend to go that way for whatever reason.
So
And now,
dumb.
and here's the other thing. So like I said, so those guys all hit the ballot. Matt Ryan also hits the ballot in 3 years for what that's worth. I know, but I'm just saying. And then
Yeah.
conceivably, in 5 years, if Eli is still waiting, you could have Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Russell Wilson hit the ballot, depending upon if they continue to play.
Oh, geez. Manning, just I'd vote. I'm voting for him this year, so I would. We'll see
Yeah.
we'll see who the list becomes
Yeah,
on that
I hope
day.
he gets in just so I don't have to continue to worry about this year after year,
When is that announced again?
That's during that NFL honors thing on the 6th, Thursday
February
night the
6th.
6th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
boy.
Now you mentioned about comparing the receivers. Um,
Yeah.
Reggie Wayne had 1,070 receptions, 14,345 yards, 82 touchdowns. Smith had 1,031 for 14,731 and 81. So slightly fewer receptions, slightly more yards, and pretty much the same number of touchdowns.
Okay.
Holt is a little bit below 920 for 13,382 and 74. Antonio Gates, for what that's worth as a tight end, had 955 for 11,841 and 116. Did not realize he had that many touchdowns.
Yeah, I remember he had. I guess if I had to pick a wide receiver, it'd be down between Reggie Wayne and Smith. Then
I think I'd have to give it to Wayne a little bit because I bet if I added in like postseason, Wayne's got better postseason numbers than Smith, but I don't know that for sure.
and Wayne has a Super Bowl ring too.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things is they also have the coach, contributor, and senior candidates.
Uh-huh.
So the coach candidate this year is Mike Holmgren, which pissed me off a little bit because he's only got one Super Bowl championship, and they nominated him over Tom Coughlin and Mike Shanahan, who both have two.
Yeah, I'd be salty too.
The contributor nominee is Ralph Hay, who was credited as being like one of the founders of the NFL. And I'm
Hmm?
like, why wasn't that guy already in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, where was he years ago?
Yeah, the three senior candidates are an interesting group. Okay. You've got Maxie Baughan, who was a linebacker back in the 60s and early 70s, who played for the Eagles and the Rams,
Okay.
retired for a few years, and came back very briefly with the Redskins in 1974. He unfortunately passed away in 2023. So
Hmm.
if they elect him, it's like you won't be around to enjoy it, unfortunately.
No.
Sterling Sharp, who, of course, had a very short career. He only actually ended up playing 7 years before I think it was like a neck injury forced him to retire.
Yeah,
I remember when he was in his prime, I definitely thought he was like one of the best receivers in the league. So,
100%.
and then the third senior candidate is a guy named Jim Tyrer, who was an offensive tackle for the Dallas Texans slash Kansas City Chiefs
Okay.
in the 60s and early 70s, and he played one final year for the Redskins. He made one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine Pro Bowls,
Holy shit. Okay.
was a first team All Pro 6 times,
Okay.
and a second team All Pro 2 times.
And he's not in the Hall of Fame already?
And he's not in the Hall of Fame.
What the fuck?
Well, that's what you would say if you don't know who Jim Tyrer was.
Then I don't. I've heard of him, but I don't.
In the early morning hours of September 15th, 1980, Tyrer murdered his wife Martha and then died by suicide.
Okay. Well, one of those. All right then.
He was immediately removed from any consideration for the Hall of Fame at that point, back then.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He was a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame at the time of the murder suicide, his first year of eligibility. He did not advance in the selection process again for 44 years when research from Beneath the Shadow filmmaker Kevin Patrick Allen led to a tacit acknowledgement from the Pro Football Hall of Fame Senior Committee that Tyrer likely suffered from brain trauma.
Ah, here we go.
On December 3rd, 2024, Tyrer reached the finalist stage for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2025. All right. I'm going to be blunt, okay? I don't care if he had brain trauma. He fucking murdered somebody. Okay? Look, we all know how devastating CTE is. We've seen it with the players who have committed suicide or had issues like the Mike Websters and the Junior Seaus and and all of that and over
Yeah.
the recent years. None of those guys, especially like say like Mike Webster, who's in the Football Hall of Fame and everything, but none of those people who may have committed suicide, I would say I was in the Hall of Fame too, who may have, who committed suicide or whatever, none of those people murdered somebody,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
Now, here's the thing. The Pro Football Hall of Fame, unlike the Baseball Hall of Fame, does not have the character clause. The thing that led a lot of people not vote for Curt Schilling because of the way he was saying that, like, journalists should be hung and shit. So
Ah, yes.
the Football Hall of Fame is supposed to only consider what they did as a player. And I would say two things to that. Number one, that's a cop out.
Mm.
Okay. Number two, you obviously already took that into consideration because he was not ever nominated again after that happened, and the fact that he wasn't elected when it happened. All
Yeah.
right. I'm sorry, you cannot put a murderer in a Hall of Fame. If they put this guy in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it would be as if WWE put Chris Benoit in theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if WWE put Chris Benoit in their Hall of Fame, which is essentially meaningless, it's just a fun thing for the fans,
Yeah.
really, when you come right down to it, it's not voted on by anybody or, blah, blah, blah. But if they ever put Chris Benoit in the WWE Hall of Fame, the publicity would be overwhelmingly negative.
Oh God, yeah. They
It
would get
would be a
trashed
shit
for it.
show. It would be all the kind of publicity that WWE does not want.
Yeah,
You
you'll
know?
that's something you'll never see happen. 40 years from now, you'll never see it.
Right. And it shouldn't. It's like he was already in the Observer Hall of Fame, was Benoit at the time of his death.
Mhm.
Meltzer, to his credit, polled his view readers and said, should we remove him? The readers responded no, as a majority, I think, which is
Interesting.
fine. If that's the voting body that voted him in, I guess they should also have the say as to whether or not to remove him. And Meltzer
Correct.
shouldn't do it unilaterally.
Yeah.
But at least Meltzer posed the question. Um, I'm sorry. Again, I'm sure this guy probably did suffer from trauma because here's another thing too. He played in a period where when linemen were prohibited from using their hands for blocking, and defensive players were permitted to use the head slap technique, which is what Deacon Jones specialized in.
Yeah, a lot did.
Think about it. You're out there playing football, you're banging your head inside that helmet. If you're intentionally getting slapped in the fucking head repeatedly, I'm sure that does do something to you. Shit, I felt just doing that to myself, and I'm not wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I just don't see how you can put somebody who murdered another human being in a Hall of Fame.
That's a valid point. I'm not
I,
disagreeing
I,
with
I
you.
just,
Definitely won't.
I
I
just
get it.
don't see it. It's like, what was the comment here? It said, teammate and author Michael Oriard would later describe Tyrer in the book The End of Autumn as the unlikeliest suicide murderer to those who knew him. I think people said the same thing about Chris Benoit. I think most people who knew him really well said, I could never imagine him doing this. And of course, they did this test of Benoit's brain after he died, and they said it was like akin to an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient and shit like that.
And that's just crazy to think about. Like his wrestling career put him through that much damage.
Yeah. Um, in 2021, the short documentary A Good Man, The Jim Tyrer Story by Kansas City filmmaker Kevin Patrick Allen was shown in select screenings, including a gathering of the Super Bowl IV champion Chiefs and members of his family. It led to a more extensive investigation into the deaths and the lives of their surviving children for a yet-to-be-released feature-length film Beneath the Shadow. In June 2024, the Kansas City Star published an op-ed from Allen that revealed key findings strongly suggesting Tyrer suffered from CTE at the time of his death. Among those findings, a specialist who examined Tyrer 2 days before his death,
Excuse me.
Douglas Payon, told Allen he had CTE, there's not a doubt in my mind. He noted that Tyrer was having headaches, abdominal pain, and a general feeling of not being himself. Yeah, that sounds like what we've heard as CTE symptoms. When Payon was unable to pinpoint the cause of Tyrer's maladies, Martha Tyrer, the wife, grabbed Payon by the arm while exiting the office and said, there's something wrong with him. He's just not the same. Look, again, I don't want to offend his children or anything like this, so I'm sure would love his father to be recognized.
Yeah.
Repair his reputation. Say something was wrong with him that caused him to murder his wife and then kill himself. Fine. That's as far as you can go because, again, all these other players who have suffered from CTE did not murder somebody.
Yeah.
I
I
just
get your
don't see
stance on it.
where you can say that's a line you can cross. I That's me. That's me.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So we will find out February 6th with that. I already have my Facebook post ready though for
Oh
if he
no.
does get elected.
Oh no.
No, seriously, if they elect Jim Tyrer into the Football Hall of Fame, I'm going to post on Facebook, hey, WWE, you can put Chris Benoit in the Hall of Fame now. The Pro Football Hall of Fame has shown you it's okay.
Oh Jesus.
I
Oh
honestly would.
boy.
I think the scene. I think that there was an article on ESPN.com a week or two ago talking about Jim Tyrer and his case for the Hall of Fame and the issues surrounding it and how there is no character clause and all that. So I think they've already had like their deliberations for the senior nominees and everything, and have like selected. It's just obviously they're keeping it secret until the honor show. But I would really almost like to almost like know who those Football Hall of Fame voters are, and like almost like write to them and say, here's the story of Chris Benoit, blah 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 blah. Just give all the details about it and say, would you allow him to be in the WWE Hall of Fame, knowing
Yeah.
all of that? You know,
Oh yeah.
so I'm curious.
Yep. We'll see. We'll see February 6th what happens.
Yes, it'll be interesting. So
Is it next weekend, Royal Rumble weekend?
yes, Saturday, February 1st, also known as my birthday, um, is the
Well,
Royal
you're
Rumble.
gonna be with us. Damn it.
Well, yes. See, this was the thing. So yesterday I went to go see a movie with my dad, and then I went
Nice.
over to my sister's house because my mother was there, and my nieces and nephews, and then my sister and brother-in-law came home from their play rehearsal. And it's like, I'm gonna be honest, I'd really love them to say, "Hey, what do you want to do for your birthday? Do you want us to take you out somewhere?" Nobody said anything like that to me. And I know my sister won't because she has play rehearsal again next weekend. So, hmm.
I know.
What do I
When
expect? I'm in my 40s now. Nobody cares about you once you hit 40, so
I think some people forget don't care when you hit your 30s.
that too. Yeah, but
It's part of
but
part
no,
of being
yeah, like
old.
if my point was if somebody in my family says, "Hey, we want to take you out for your birthday," I would basically say to them, "Well, we have to do it Sunday the 2nd because I have an obligation Friday, Saturday the 1st."
Go out for lunch.
Well, if they want to do that, but considering my parents live an hour and a half away and everything, just the
Yeah, it's a bit
logistics
much.
would be problematic too. So,
Yeah, yeah, I got you. I got you.
especially because my mother's still recovering from her fractured ankle and everything. So, um,
Yes, how's
she's
that
still
going?
she's still not the most mobile person. She's definitely got a lot better. Like she's not in the wheelchair or anything like that anymore, but she's still obviously very slow and has to be very careful with everything. So,
Hmm. All right, gotcha.
yeah.
What time does that Rumble start, to be honest?
Uh, I'm gonna guess 7. Um, because I think I saw something on Peacock where it was advertising it for 5 or 4, but I'm like, well, that's obviously the pre-show.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, 6? Oh shit.
you're starting it at 6?
Yeah.
That can't be.
So what's I'm seeing on my screen?
There's a reason I'm saying it can't be that.
For fans of the
Royal,
United States
well,
and Canada, WWE Royal Rumble 2025 will begin at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, February 1st.
oh shit, yeah.
So, do you know what that's going to end up doing?
No.
Um, so our cohort, since we're not a trios today, the dynamic duo is what you have. Our third party is going to have to start that because my esports will not be over. Esports is usually so my one team that I coach, they start at 5:15 and those games go like a half hour each. So, and
You
we
know,
don't start till like 5:25. So I probably won't be done till like 6:30.
I will keep making this joke until I don't find it funny anymore. But between the two of you, I'm seriously doubting your commitment to Sparkle Motion.
Listen, this coaching gig's paid, so I have to. I have no choice.
Okay, I will allow that.
Yeah, it's a I get a W-2 and that's a paid obligation. So I have to do. I can't roll with that. Yeah. So, okay. Oh, come on, bro. 7 o'clock. God damn yous. Oh, and our friend of the show, Kevin, might join us for the Royal Rumble at some point. Maybe Shane as well to get a big group on here and shoot the shit for
Well,
Royal Rumble time.
the reason I'm also kind of like questioning this 6 p.m. start time is as of right now, we've only got 4 matches announced. Now, 2 of them are Royal Rumble matches, which means they will both take an hour, of course. And
Correct.
one of them is now a 2 out of 3 falls match. Um,
Which one is
but
that?
I'm getting the sense they're not adding another match.
Wait,
Though I
what's the
feel
two?
like they need it. I feel like they need it.
Oh, the tag titles are 2 out of 3. I didn't know that.
Right. So we've got the men's Royal Rumble match, the women's Royal Rumble match, which of course we only have 10 men and 7 women who have officially declared, and we're now less than a week away from the fucking show.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
looking at
we've
a.
yeah, we've got the ladder match between Cody and KO for the undisputed WWE Championship, and now on Friday night on SmackDown, they added a 2 out of 3 falls match for the WWE Tag Team Championship as DIY will defend against the
Motor
Motor
City.
Shitty will defend against the Motor City Machine Guns. Sorry, the only reason I said it like that was because the next word had the sh in it. So,
I get it. Yeah, I
um, I'm actually looking forward to that match between DIY and the Machine Guns because I think it could
exciting.
be a decent match. And I'll save this for next week, but I was looking this up because I also have a file where I list like the card from every WWE pay-per-view going back to WrestleMania 1.
Oh, okay.
There have been surprisingly few 2 out of 3 falls matches on WWE pay-per-views. The reason
Hmm.
I find that interesting is because back in the day, the old NWA um, caveat, especially for title matches, was that they were always 2 out of 3 falls, especially for the world title, and because that was the way to ensure that you like it was like a legitimate title change, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah, but there have not been a lot of 2 out of 3 falls matches. Like the whenever I think out of a 2 out of 3 falls championship match in WWE history, I always think of SummerSlam 1990. Hart Foundation Demolition was 2 out of 3 falls for the tag team championships, where
Okay.
Demolition was defending against the Hart Foundation. That's when Demolition was the 3-man team.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They would have been
And they
perfect nowadays for trios.
right. Well, they pulled the whole thing smash. They was all like they didn't have the Freebird rule where they could switch in matches, you know. They had the Freebird rule, but so like Smash and Crush came out to do the match because Axe by that point was getting, beaten down and his health
Yeah.
wasn't. But they did the whole thing where Axe came out in the match and replaced one of the other two. And the referee somehow didn't notice, even though they were 3 distinctive looking guys.
I know. So
That's
funny.
the tall one, that's the one with the mustache, and that's Axe.
Yeah. How do you mess it up?
Don't let the face paint fool you. They even wear the same face paint. So, but anyway, but then of course the match ended with LOD coming down because they had just joined WWF and they
Hmm.
like pulled like one of the one that was hiding under the ring at that point out, and it caused enough of a distraction to the guys in the ring that it enabled the Hearts to get the decisive fall. So the Hart Foundation won the belts, and it was a pretty good match overall, as I recall. So
Wow, not too many 2 out of 3. Interesting.
no, not a lot. And here's the other thing too. When I was looking it up, some of those 2 out of 3 falls matches they've done on pay-per-views weren't title matches, which is kind of even more interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like I think there was one between Benoit and Jericho at SummerSlam one year,
Oh, I remember that one.
but it wasn't for a title. It was just like, all right, we're having a 2 out of 3 falls match because we got to settle this.
Yeah, yeah, one of those type of things.
Yeah.
Huh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So the 10 men who have declared For the men's Royal Rumble match are LA Knight, John Cena, CM Punk, Jey Uso, who obviously needs it after not dethroning Gunther last night,
Of course.
Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Rey Mysterio, Sami Zayn, and Shinsuke Nakamura. The 7 women who have declared are Nia Jax, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, Naomi, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, and Raquel Rodriguez. Now, AJ and I discussed that it wouldn't be a good look to have Charlotte and Becky both return in the Royal Rumble match because it would take away from each of them, you know?
Uh-huh.
I am reconsidering that position since they have now announced ahead of time that Charlotte will be in the match. Because like it won't be the surprise factor.
Nope.
We know
We'll
we can
announce one,
we can
surprise
brace
the
for
other.
it, you know, but
Yeah.
so if
Surprise
Becky
one and
makes a
announce the
surprise
other.
return, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that Becky will. She could. Did you see the story that supposedly Nikki Bella might be coming back?
Oh God, yes.
I really had to thoroughly roll my eyes against that. Nothing against Nikki Bella. I know she's had some very heavy personal trials lately.
Yes, she has. 100%.
I don't see where somebody like Nikki Bella fits right now because I don't think it's controversial to say Nikki Bella is not a polished in-ring worker.
No, no, she's not.
And the women's roster they have right now, you could argue that there's a lot of women who kind of fall by the wayside. So where does Nikki Bella fit?
Like if she's gonna come back to be in the Rumble as somebody, that's fine. But her coming back even as a part-time thing, I don't know.
I
Because
can't
that
even, yeah,
legitimately is taken away from somebody else at that point.
I can't even really see where she would fit as coming back as like maybe say like kind of like almost like what Sonya's doing right now, where Sonya kind of wrestles some of the time and manages the other two the rest of the.
Yeah.
I can't even see Nikki Bella doing that because I don't see who there is for her to pair her with.
I'd have to think about who they compare her with. I'd need some time for that one. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
I just thought maybe somebody they could pair her with, and it would probably really make AJ pissed off. They could pair her with Roxanne, moving Roxanne to the main roster.
Roxanne and Cora Jade.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because there's also a story I saw this week about Alexa Bliss's return getting scuttled because they were having some contractual issues.
Yeah, I read that too. I read
It
that
sounded
too.
very strange, but I also remember saying to myself, they might throw her a bone or two, but ultimately she's going to have to just agree to what they want to do. She's not going to get what she supposedly wants because she needs them a lot more than they need her right now.
Yes. For that, correct.
You know,
100%
I can
correct.
complain about maybe the booking of the women's roster and this, that, or the other thing, but what I can't say is that they're lacking for star power. They've got a pretty solid roster right now in terms of star power,
Yes.
especially
They're
with
not lacking.
Charlotte and Becky coming back.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
They have a plethora of females on that roster from all three
Yep.
that have the talent. Some are still working on their craft, but others are
Yeah.
ready. So they have enough talent. It's probably the most stacked this women's roster has been in a long time. Like legitimately.
Yeah, definitely. So, oh, that's it.
But yeah, so WWE Royal Rumble. It's like my favorite pay-per-view. I just love the Royal Rumble match itself. It's so
Yep.
awesome.
Me too. Always have. You know, it's funny. The 1991 Royal Rumble was always one of my favorite Royal Rumbles, probably because Hogan won. Um, but it was also because that was also like that was a Saturday night as opposed to like a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday night, which is when they kind of more commonly did. Well, actually, I think Sunday afternoon was really when they more commonly did WWF pay-per-views back in that day, because that was also well, there was only 4 pay-per-views a year still at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember my dad and I we went over to my uncle's house and we watched that. We bought that pay-per-view and watched it, and we of course we taped it because yeah, if you're buying the pay-per-view, you're putting that VHS tape in that VCR and recording to some bitch.
Hell yeah.
And it wasn't the first WWF pay-per-view I ever convinced my parents to let me buy because, or rather, they buy.
True.
Because we bought WrestleMania 6, but obviously I don't have a lot of fond memories of WrestleMania 6 being that Hogan lost to Warrior.
Ah, yes, yes.
Whereas he's standing triumphant at the end of the 91 Royal Rumble. But I just watched that tape so endlessly that the tape was starting to degrade. That's the thing. When I watch it on the network now, I go, huh, the video quality is so much better than I remember it being. And then I remember, yeah, because you're not watching it on a VHS tape that you've watched 50 times.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
But I mean, I don't know. I just always found that match so fun because they got a lot of guys in the ring, but there was still like enough time for like big spots and big moments to happen. But nowadays, when you see like people review that match, that's one of the more lower rated ones because they go, people complain about there being too many guys in the ring. And I'm like, dude, it's not supposed to be a spot fest though either. It's not supposed to be about the Kofi Kingston moments all the
Nope.
time. And it's like, come on, you also got to go back and reveal some context. That was only the fourth Royal Rumble match ever. And it was only the
Yeah.
third 30-man Royal Rumble match. So it's like, I think you're judging it against today's standards, which doesn't always work. But
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You
and
gotta look
I
at
think they
the
also said
time.
something like, "Oh, this would have been a good time to elevate somebody else." Or I'm like, who?
I mean, seriously. Like, do
Who
you
that was in that match needed elevating? There's only one guy that would have fit that description, and that was The Undertaker. The
yeah.
problem was he'd only been in the company for about 4 months at that point, and by the end of the year, he was champion anyway.
Yeah, he didn't need to be elevated.
But
Different
everybody else was in
time,
that match.
different
I can't really
setup.
say that like there was somebody who you got to point and say, "Oh, this would have been the time to give him a big push." Well, that's not where they were at that point,
No.
unfortunately. So, like Hogan was in the match and won, and that's the other thing too. Even though it wasn't the stipulation, you could say it was the proto winner gets the title shot thing because he went to on to Wrestle Slaughter at WrestleMania for the title.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he did.
You know, but like Hogan was in the match, Undertaker's in the match. Earthquake was in the match, and that was really the end of the Hogan Earthquake feud. So Earthquake wasn't in position to be the next main event guy in that sense.
No.
Savage was supposed to be in the match, but he no-showed because the Ultimate Warrior ran him out of the building after Savage interfered in the title match and cost the Warrior the match. But so obviously they were going to Savage Warrior at WrestleMania.
Correct.
You know, um, Brett was still the Hart Foundation were still tag team champions at that point, so it wouldn't make sense to do anything for him. Um, DiBiase wasn't in the Royal Rumble match because he and Virgil wrestled Dusty and Dustin.
Mhm.
Um, Boss Man had a singles match against the Barbarian. Piper was on commentary. Um, the Rockers were in a tag match against the Orient Express, which was a really good match. But I'm like, there was really nobody else who fit that thing. Like, Jake and Martel were still in their feud. The Bulldog was in that match, and that was kind of like when he first came back after like an absence of a couple years, but you weren't gonna give him the Royal Rumble match when he had just come back. It's just like you had a lot of decent guys, but it was like there wasn't anybody who was like because you had a lot of guys who were like more veteran and more towards the end of their career, like Greg Valentine and Dino Bravo. And Tony Atlas was back as Saba Simba. But then you had a bunch
Oh,
of tag team
geez.
guys. You had both, LOD members. You had both Demolition members. You had both Bushwhackers. You had Power and Glory. It wasn't set up to be like that yet, you know?
Yeah, no, not at that time. That's what people don't realize. That's not how they did things at that time, at that point. That
Yeah, I
was
mean,
later on in
Hogan,
the late
yeah,
90s before they started doing that shit.
right. Even though Hogan hadn't exactly slipped down the card since he had lost the title to the Warrior, it was clear that they knew that they were going to have Hogan wrestle for the title at WrestleMania. That was the only reason you were taking the title off Warrior because you'd like, well, it hasn't worked as well as we thought. We got to put the title back on Hogan. So it was basically putting Hogan strong again, you know?
Yeah, of course. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. We've
But
been on.
anyway, so yeah, the Royal Rumble's always fun. And if this gets posted before next weekend, that's up to you, Joe, of course. I'm not putting too much pressure on you or anything. I don't know what your schedule's like. But anyway, yes, we will be in some form, hopefully, as long as Jeremy's dumbass is not obligated. We will be live casting during the Rumble next Saturday.
Yes, yes, we will. We will be on 100%. Um, well, with that being said, we've had an interesting show today that we just did. So well, yeah, I'll be posting it sometime. I'll try to post it before Thursday um for everyone. But with that being said, we'll use Jeremy's outro just because he's not here and make him feel good that, we're doing something for him, I guess. But with that being said, we had a great show, good times, and I hope you finished with us.